Hi, welcome back to another video. Today's video is all about braking and some tips to help you check over your bike and just make sure you're getting the most out your brakes. Some of them are simple. The first one that I was going to suggest is to bleed your brakes. Now, bleeding your brakes is pushing new fluid through the system. The fluid is what pushes the calipers together, which effectively clasp onto the rotor and do the brakes. Over time, this fluid can get dirty, can reduce its boiling point, and it can make it less efficient. You can get air in the system, which gives you that spongy feel in the rotor. Now, I suggest, if you've never done it before, watch many videos on YouTube. I'm not going to do a full comprehensive on how to bleed your brakes. I'm just telling you that now and again you should feel your brakes. My other advice is, if you don't think they need bleeding, don't do it because it's a bit of a faff. You do need different oil for mineral oil for Shimano and .5.1 for SRAM, and you need a different bleed kit as well. So if you're going to do it, look on the internet. You can get the official kit, which is quite expensive, or you can get the cheap kit like Epic bleed kits or something like that that are less expensive. It is a time consuming job, but it's worth it in the end. You can get a local shop to do it, usually about £15 a brake. And when you've removed your brake pads, you can give your caliper a little clean. You can use those earwax things, or just get in there with a little cloth and stuff. You see the pistons are not really pushed back all the way yet. I do have a tool for that, which looks like this piston retractor tool. It's always worth going, better than bending your spoons and whatnot. But just give that a little clean out in there with all the dust. I will push those pistons back. But any rubbish and stuff on your brake pads. You can check your brake pads as well and make sure they've got enough on for your expected ride. Make a judgment on whether they need replaced. If they're down to the metal, they're not going to be good for your rotor. So these are my current rear brake pads. Plenty of life left in them, you can see. And I'll check my front brake pads, and I think that's a different story. You could always put a torch behind there if you wanted to do it, but you see right in there, they are on their way out. Another tip: if you've got a piston retracting tool, try and get your pistons back, obviously with the pads in. It's good to keep an old set of brake pads to do this with, actually, but you'll find that if you've got a proper tool, it doesn't really mess up your pads like a spoon or a tyre lever would. So you can just push them back there, and they're a bit more equal. Then if you've got more on one side than the other, it's going to have uneven braking. So we've checked the pads, we've bled the brakes, we've cleaned the calipers, and now what we need to do is concentrate on the rotor. So first thing, let's give the rotor a clean. These are a SRAM centerline one. You can see mine are a little bit dirty. I'm going to use this isopropyl alcohol, but they do disc cleaner, which is pretty much the same thing. So a bit of this, I'll just clean it off. Let's see how much muck comes off this. Now the next thing, staying with the rotor again. If the rotor's on the bike, don't need to tell you, but keep your fingers clear, and the edges can be sharp, so be careful. But there's some useful information on the rotor, and the first one is this one. It's upside down, I apologise. There you go. Bolt torque, can you see that? 6.2 newton meters. So got my torque wrench. If you know how a torque wrench works, you basically wind up the resistance and it'll click when you hit the torque. Just check the bolts. But what's the point in checking them? Well, if some of them become loose, they can cause your rotor to wobble, and that can rub, and it can also warp your disc. So I'll just give a quick check on them. This uses the T25 end. That's a T25. So always checking if you've got a multi-tool. One of these on tend to appear on modern bikes quite a lot. Right, check, done. And again, staying with the rotor, the next thing, not a lot of people know this, is the thickness of the rotor. So obviously as you brake over time, they're going to wear your thickness down. So I think SRAM come in at 1.85 millimeters, I think, in thickness as a rule of thumb, and Shimano 1.8, or maybe, yeah, SRAM are generally thicker anyway. So what you need to do is just measure the thickness of the rotor across there. You can get an electrical caliper tool, but I'm not that posh. I've got somewhere B&Q. Right, so I'll just give it a quick measure. Again, you know when it gets to 1.1 mil, then that's when you need to bin it off and get a new one. You'll notice some better performance with a thicker rotor as well, believe it or not. Well, it's useless, this mine's at 1.05. Anyway, it needs replacing. So let's get one of those in order. It's too thin. It's worth checking your front and your back rotor. If it's too thin, bin it off, get rid of it. You'll notice as well you can get better different rotors, like floating rotors have a different metal compound in the middle, and that helps disperse heat. That's another thing you can do to improve your braking. Check out your different brake pad compounds. You could get a softer resin one if you're in a sunnier conditions, or if mud is no object, it'll give you better, quieter braking. Something like a sintered pad, which got more metal residue in it, will give you a longer life of the pad, but make a lot more noise and be less efficient in braking. Anyway, I've got a video coming up on different brake pad compounds. The rotor is to check it's true, and you can check how true, which means how does it spin without a wobble. One of these, this is a disc rotor true tool. You can get a million different tools to do this, but I can't actually demonstrate. But put it on the bike, spin it around, this fits in. This can be used to bend the rotor backwards and forwards as required if it touches either side. You can just do it on the bike, spin the wheel, put a light behind it so you can see, and if it's touching the pads, mark where it is, and you can just bend it back into shape. There is one last one I would mention. Unfortunately my bike is like this and not put together, and that's to just put the to center your disc in the caliper, and all you need to do there is just undo these two bolts, this one and also this one slightly, put the wheel in, hold the brake as tight as you can, and then tighten it back up, and hopefully that should put that back in the middle. So there's a few quick tips to help you get your brakes a bit better. Let me know if you've got any more tips in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon. See you now.